The story begins with our MC Aura farming by offering to buy this skill of hers that brings nothing but trouble. A stout lady finds it hard to believe that this young man would willingly buy her troublesome skill, Monster Attractor level 10, and would even go so far as to pay for it. The young man assures her that he's willing to buy it for the price of 10 million, so of course the lady easily grabs this opportunity. Well, that settles it. The young man takes both of the older lady's hands in his and deems the negotiations successful. A bright light emanates from their joined hands as the Monster Attractor skill is removed from her skill list. He hands over a fat wad of cash as payment, and also urges her to have her skills appraised at church just to be sure. Meanwhile, a small crowd has gathered around them, curious about this peculiar young man. The young man tells everyone that if anyone has any bothersome or useless skills, he'll buy them from them. He walks along the marketplace saying any skill level is fine, so they should just reach out to him if they have any more questions. And yes, this young man is the Collector, the protagonist of our story. How did he end up as the Collector? Let's rewind it to where it all began. You see, in this world, skills are blessings granted by God to people from the day they are born. As such, it has become an everyday occurrence and part of people's lives. In a small rural town, people live peacefully, each possessing at least 3 or 4 skills. 2 neighborhood ladies were chattering by themselves at the village well when a young boy approached it to get a pail of water. This kid is none other than the future Collector. Right now, he has one skill, his only skill, called Trading, which is currently at level 1. Once he has his pail of water, he takes his leave, and the ladies immediately get to talking about how awful it is to be blessed with only one skill, and even a useless one at that. The other even proclaimed how glad she was that her son didn't experience such. The first lady shushes her friend, saying her voice is too loud, while the little Collector continues to walk away, a little pissed, because he can hear them, you know? Just then, 2 other kids block his way, calling him the guy with the useless skill. These 2 runts start ganging up on our protagonist, telling him to stay out of the village, but of course the would-be Collector refuses to be bullied. He claps back, saying their skills are something only criminals would have. He's right, you know? The runt's skills include coercion, being smelly, strength, tailing, clairvoyance, and healing. The bullies are angered by his comment and don't hesitate to punch our hero, calling him nothing but his older sister's leftovers. Just like that, our kid walks back home nursing a cheek wound. He feels upset because even he knows he can't win against the strength skill. Speaking of skill, he can't help but think that no matter what skill it is, as long as it can be used, it's better than having a useless skill. He wipes off his wounded cheek before opening the door to their house, announcing he's home to his sister. A beautiful long-haired girl turns from her working desk to greet him. And she's definitely loaded with the best skills, ranging from appraisal and drawing to every school topic from memorization to fine arts. She's got it, and get this, they're all level 20. He looks over her desk, asking if she was in the middle of drawing something. His sister answers that she had just finished it, showing him a portrait of the 2 of them smiling together. Our protagonist merely looks at it, so his older sister asks what his verdict is. Well, it's good as always, and then he looks down as he shares that the other kids called him leftover scraps of hers again. His older sister immediately kicks up a fuss. How could they call her beloved younger brother like that? But it's true though, right? He goes on saying how she has 10 skills in the arts and sciences. Everybody in town has been saying that it's a waste of her skills to keep staying in this town. As for him, on the other hand, he only has one skill, and it's not even useful, this trading skill of his. When he was much younger, he went to get his skill appraised. There, they discovered that his skills are trading, but the appraiser has never heard of such a skill before, so he also has no idea how it works. With that, he hands our hero the results of the appraisal and tells him straight up that he only has a single skill, trading. As soon as he got home that day, our boy tried using this trading skill of his using an apple. He stands right near the fruit exclaiming, "Trading, sell this apple!" Of course, nothing happened. He immediately tells his parents that he tried using his skill again today, but unfortunately it didn't work. Both his parents sigh in frustration. What was the use of having a rare skill if he can't even use it? It's practically the same as being useless. They both didn't bother to hide their disappointment in him. His mother even went as far as to say how she hoped he would also have talents just like his older sister. Some kind of parents these 2 are. Our poor little hero feels even worse, and seeing his reaction, his older sister decides to step in. She changes the topic, reminding their parents how they have a lot of money saved up from her drawings, and suggests they buy a nice house in the capital. Upon hearing that, both their parents lit up because with just the 3 of them, they could leave our poor hero behind. But to their surprise, the sister tells them that she'll stay behind in the village with her little brother. What? Why would they? If anything, the 3 of them should just live together in the capital and leave her useless brother behind. Their mother even has no problem proclaiming that they shouldn't worry about him at all. Our would-be hero agrees with their parents. After all, he only has one skill and even he doesn't know how to use it, so there's no point in staying with someone like him. But his older sister doesn't think that way at all. In fact, she's even happy to be able to live with her precious little brother, which is pretty valuable to her. So now here they are, a year into living together by themselves. Our hero still has no idea how to use and activate his skills, while his sister urges him to take it easy. She suggests trying things out slowly and avoiding fights if possible. At the mention of fights, he flinched because how can he forget? The bruise on his cheek? Well, it's a good thing his sister has a pharmaceutical skill under her belt, no? With that, she hands him her special ointment. She applies this all over his bruises, instantly healing him. After checking, he can't help but comment on how jealous he is of her skills. He even says she should just give him at least one of her skills. If that were the case, she would have done so long ago if it were possible. Their conversation gets cut short when they hear knocks on the door. She opens it and sees an older man who tells her he'll be looking forward to her appraisal today too. With a smile, she tells him that she'll be at the village square. And no sooner had she shut the door than our protagonist asks if she's doing appraisals for the villagers again. She said that is so, but our little hero is not pleased with the way the villagers are taking advantage of her. He pouts, saying that just because his older sister has an appraisal skill doesn't mean they can keep asking for it without giving anything in return. She pats his head, smiling as she assures him that she's not going to abandon our would-be hero. Besides, she believes that his skill is highly valuable. Hearing those words gave him so much comfort because in this world where their parents and the villagers curse him for being useless, here's his sister, the only one who is on his side. This display of affection made him a little shy, so he told her not to pat his head too much. With that, she heads to the door with a smile, saying she might be home late since the mayor's relative is coming. He bids her goodbye, thinking that as long as he has her, he doesn't need anything or anyone else. Even when she was already outside, she kept looking over, so he had to shoo her away with a smile. Well, now that he has the house all to himself, he might as well start cleaning the house. If there's one thing his sister is not good at, it's cleaning the house. He starts picking up the trash when he sees the drawing she did earlier. Taking it into his hand, even he had to admit that it was a pretty good drawing of the two of them. Much later, night has already fallen. Our protagonist woke up from the sofa and he couldn't even remember that he had fallen asleep. He gets up and asks aloud if his sister has returned, but he is only met with silence. It looks like she's still in town, so he decides to grab a lamp and fetch her. After all, she may be older, but she's still a girl. He left the house expecting to meet up with her soon, but to his shock, the whole village is on fire. What? Why? What's happening? Before he realized it, he dashed straight to the village, thinking about his sister. Everywhere he went, there were piles of dead bodies on the ground. Simply put, it was a massacre. He even tripped over one of the strewn bodies and looked over to see that it was the two ladies and bullies from this morning. Seeing them in that state, our hero almost threw up because who would do something like this? Now, he's even more worried and determined to find his sister. Now that he thinks about it, he remembers her mentioning the mayor's relative. That's it. She should be at the mayor's house right now. Our hero makes a run for the mayor's residence, and even the entry yard has dead bodies strewn all over it. He goes straight to the front door and notices that it's unlocked, so he enters only to be welcomed by a couple more dead bodies in the entrance hall. Even the stairs are full of dead bodies with severed body parts and fingers pointing up strangely. Suddenly, he hears a voice from upstairs telling somebody else to stop what they were doing. That snapped him out of his reverie, smacking his face to get a better hold of himself. Was that the mayor's voice? If the mayor is still alive, then he might know where his sister is. The voice continues to cry out, questioning the perpetrator why they're doing something like this. Meanwhile, our hero literally steps over the dead bodies as he climbs the stairs, calling out to his sister. He tries to calm himself, chanting not to look down, and hoping against hope that his sister is still alive. He doesn't care even if he only has a single useless skill, and even if their parents and the villagers curse him. Now he hears the mayor's voice even more clearly, with him telling his assailant that he can give the village to them. Just then, another voice spoke and said they don't want a village that's already destroyed. As soon as he opened the door, the mayor's body flew right by him and slammed against the wall, all bloodied and battered. He catches a glimpse of the older man before he turns to the person before him. It was his sister all along. She welcomes him, but the latter is confused. Just what is going on? With a hint of mockery, his sister asks if he's referring to why everyone is dead. She approaches him and says she simply miscalculated. As it turns out, the mayor's relative has a pretty high appraisal level, so he found out that she has a plundering skill. Wait, what? His sister explains that she's been hiding it pretty well all this time, using her concealment and acting skills. Her brother has difficulty following all these revelations due to shock. What did she mean by plundering? But her sister continues on, saying it was about time she made a move anyway. Right now she motions to the pile of dead bodies, saying she plundered all the villagers' skills she learned through appraisal, so she's done everything she needs to do. There's no point in staying here anymore. Because of that, she ended up killing everyone, every single person in the village. He can't believe what he's hearing. Killed them? It's a lie. It's all a lie. Seeing her like this, fear starts to creep up on him as he stares at his sister's retreating back. No, this isn't his sister because he knows she's a kind-hearted person. Suddenly, she turns back to look at him with a glint of mischief in her eyes, making our hero stop mid-track at the stairs. This caused her to burst out laughing. She continues her way downstairs, telling him that she already knows he thought she'd kill him. She knows this because of her psychology skill and tells him not to worry because she won't kill him. At least not yet, because his skill is the only one she can't plunder. Wait, what does that mean? What does she mean by she can't plunder his skill? To this, she walks back to him with a smile, as expected of her little brother. That's a good question, and with that she hands him a book saying she'll teach him some good information about skills. There are a lot of common skills like strength, coercion, and detection, but for her plundering skill, it's something only one person can have at any given time. Simply put, it's a rare skill. Then, there's his trading skill, which is an even more rare skill. A skill like his can never show up again in the present or future and has never even manifested in the past. It's categorized as an only skill. He tries to chase after her, wanting to know more about an only skill when she remembers that he doesn't even know how to use his own trading skill. She approaches him and whispers in his ear how to use his skill. Right after that, she tells him that in her current level of plundering, she can't plunder any only skills yet, which is why she'll get out of the village and travel to raise her plundering level. And then, once she's able to steal his skill, she'll plunder his skill and kill him the next time they meet. Until then, she tells him to polish his only skill. Our hero tries to catch up to her, but she uses her leap, swiftness, and wind magic to get away, leaving him behind. He doesn't even have any idea about the skill she just used right now. And how does she know a lot about his only skill? Despite everything that happened, he refuses to believe that it was his sister. It's a lie. His sister is a kind person. If he goes home right now, for sure she'll be there. But the empty house is a testament that everything that happened just now was all true. All that's left of her is the drawing she made earlier that day. He can't help but cry, wondering aloud why she said she was going to kill him. Just why? Back to the present, the collector stares at the drawing his sister did, which he put on a locket. He continues staring at it until the other guy from the carriage strikes up a conversation, asking if that was his girlfriend. The collector answers that it was his sister, much to the dismay of the other guy. On the other hand, the collector still can't believe it until now, leaving the other guy confused. What is this dude talking about? Well, at least the collector clarified that he was just talking to himself. But still, in his heart, he wants to believe that his elder sister had a reason for doing what she did. She was so kind and blessed with so many skills, so why did she want more skills to the point of killing? And why didn't she tell him anything? There are a lot of questions he still wants to ask her. Even though her threat is there, he still wants to see her again and know what she's thinking, even if he ends up getting killed the next time they meet. All this time, he's been polishing his only trading skill to meet his sister again. If that's the only way the two of them can meet, then so be it. With that, he sets out for his next destination. It only took a short while for him to find a large building and enter it to find the right unit. After walking some more, he knocks on a certain door and introduces himself as the collector. He tells them that he'll purchase skills they don't have any use for, or the bothersome ones. The person from the other side of the door welcomes him, saying they've been expecting the collector. This is the story of the collector and his sister, whose lives have been transformed by skills, as well as the stories of various people troubled by their own skills. The customer thanks the collector for buying their useless skills, but the latter points out that it's no sweat and that he's more than happy to continue doing his collective service with them. With that, the collector makes his way around the market, announcing his collective services so the people can hear he's willing to buy any useless or troublesome skills they have. After a little while, he managed to buy 12 skills before settling for a break in a nearby pub. Now that he's seated, he notices how he has already gotten used to doing this kind of work. Looking around the neighborhood with children playing on the streets, he deems that this city must be peaceful. He takes his locket out to look at the drawn picture of him and his sister. So far, he's been buying and selling skills with his trading, and ever since his big sister taught him how to use it, he has made a living out of this skill collecting service. But the thing is, he still has no idea where to find his sister. Despite traveling around with his collection service, he thought he'd chance upon his sister by now. Just then, he hears a voice ask if he's the one doing the collection service. That snapped him out of his reverie as the collector looked up and saw an older man with floating books approach him. The latter asks to speak with him privately, leaving the collector a bit puzzled. And that's how the collector finds himself seated inside a luxurious home while drinking tea. The sheer size of the residence intimidated him, so he couldn't quite settle down. He turns to the older man, who is revealed to be the elder sage, and asks whether he truly wishes to sell all his skills to the collector. The older man confirms it, saying he wants all his skills to be bought, save for the memory skill. That's a lot of level 20 skills he got there for sale, of which the collector reminds the older man how he has quite a multitude of valuable skills. At the mention of that, the sage asks if the collector can see his skills. Our hero smiles and explains that he bought an appraisal skill long ago, allowing him to see others' skills at will. But back to the topic, the collector points out that any skill at level 10 is already considered valuable. But all of the sage's skills are level 20, which is on a whole other level. Of course, the collector says he can buy all of them, but he doesn't have enough money on hand. That's when the older man says he'll accept 100,000 for all of them. This made the collector pause for a bit, because even though it's beneficial for him, he needs to know the reason why the elder sage is doing so. The older man explains it's because he has already reached old age. All his life he spent it pursuing nothing but knowledge, believing that it was his natural duty for people who were blessed with the same skills as him. But as time went on, he began to question if doing such was enough. From there, he thought, why not just cast aside all of his old self? As such, he decided to start over as an adventurer this time around. The collector listens to the old man intently, wondering if the latter is really set on becoming an adventurer after retiring. Anyway, as the sage was saying, he heard about that. Not only does the collector purchase skills, but he also sells them. Before anything else, the older man confirms whether his skill slots should have as many open spaces as the skills he got rid of. The collector is surprised that the older man knows this, though he is pleased that even the older man knows about the skill slots. You see, the number of skills one can have is determined by the number of skill slots they are born with. Generally, there are around 2 to 5 slots per person. However, money alone doesn't guarantee someone can acquire all the skills they want. With this, the collector asks if the older man is eyeing getting a couple of skills as well. To this, the latter said he wants all the skills one needs to become an adventurer. Skills such as swordsmanship, physical ability, brute force, and recovery. He also wants skills like concealment and tailing, emphasizing how he wants the last two to be at high levels. Thankfully, the collector has all the skills the sage wants, and his buying price is enough for him. So that seals it. The collector takes both of the elder sage's hands in his as he buys off all of the older man's skills. Just then, the front door opens, making both of them turn to the sound. A little kid pokes his head through the open door, calling out to his grandpa. The collector instantly sees this kid's skills, ranging from archery to brute force to reaction and keen vision. These are all skills ideal for an adventurer. The boy asks his grandpa if he's done with his talk since the kid says he'll be off on his first adventure tomorrow. The collector and the elder sage only look at him before they both stand to approach the boy. The sage approaches his grandchild, reminding him that being an adventurer is a dangerous job. But the boy brushes off his grandfather's worrying. As if to remind him, the boy claims that the only reason he wanted to become an adventurer in the first place was because of the picture books about adventurers the older man read to him every night. The sage's brows furrow because now he has come to admit that he regrets doing that. Yet he remains proud and turns away from his grandson, saying he's against the path the boy chose. For that, he forbids his grandson from returning to this house ever again. The boy turns to the collector with a smile and apologizes on behalf of his grandfather. He may be grumpy, but the boy assures our hero that his grandfather is kind. The older man quickly tells his grandson not to say unnecessary things, which the boy dismisses again with a smile. With that, he bids the older man goodbye, saying he loves him. Looking at how the two interacted, the collector notes how the grandfather-grandson duo has a pretty close connection. With the boy gone, the sage asks the collector if he saw his grandson's skills and what he thought of them. Oops, just when he thought he could get away with it, the collector didn't expect the older man to call out for it. But he can't help it. Appraising someone's skill has become a habit of his. Well, he tells the sage that his grandson's skills are pretty outstanding and well suited for being an adventurer. The older man only nods and looks away, muttering about how he hopes his grandchild doesn't become too reliant on his skills and end up doing something reckless. Since their transaction is done, the collector makes his way back to the town. Looking back, it was a pretty heavy expense, but at least he still got plenty of skills. Be that as it may, he can't help thinking about the elder sage and his grandchild. The older man seemed happy enough, but the collector still wonders why the elder sage gave up all of his skills to become an adventurer. Plus, there's also the add-on for concealment and tailing. The collector is well aware that concealment and tailing are two skills not suited for adventurers. If anything, thieves are better suited for those. Now he's worried that the older man would commit a crime. There's just no way, right? That would be quite unusual, especially for someone blessed with such skills. As soon as he thought of that, the image of his sister flashed in his mind, and once again he was humbled. What would he know about that? He's not blessed with such skills. All this thinking got him stopping in the middle of the street as he looked up and wondered if he should leave for tomorrow. The next day, in a certain unnamed forest, a party of adventurers traverses the path carefully, not knowing that a shadow was closely following behind. This party is none other than the one where the sage's grandson is a part of. He marches happily ahead of his crew members, unlike the others who fall behind him, one of whom is even worried. Before long, he sees their target, the monster egg for the job collection. He made his way for it carelessly and was about to sack the eggs when the mother monster appeared behind him. He turns, horrified at what's before him. Just as the shadow was about to jump out and intervene, lucky for them, one of the party members cut down the monster in one fell swoop. The grandson thanks his party mate, with the other one chuckling, proud of what he just did. The only girl in their group now looks relieved because they managed to complete the job without any incident. The boy turns to the forest, mentioning to his party mates how he felt someone was watching them just now. Or maybe it's his imagination. Little did he know there really was someone watching them from behind the trees, and that someone heaves a sigh of relief since his cover is not blown. The figure sets out again to follow the party when suddenly, a hand taps his shoulder. It's the collector. And yes, the one following the group is none other than the elder sage, with the collector asking how his grandchild fared in their first mission. Now the sage has the necessary skills for an adventurer, like swordsmanship, physical ability, brute force, and recovery, save for his memory, which is the only one he retained from his original set of skills. The older man turns to the collector and is about to ask why he was there, but the latter simply says he wanted to check on the elder sage. After all, it would worry him if the skills he sold were abused. Still, the sage can't believe it. He couldn't even sense the collector even though he also has tailing and concealment both at level 7. To that, the latter explains that he used the skill he sells. He sold 7 levels of concealment and tailing to the sage, so he still has 23 levels left of the 2 skills. The old man never knew that the collector could partially transfer skills, to which the collector says he's only able to do that because of a skill called management. It's a skill that adjusts the level of skills during an interaction, and has the ability to store skills outside of the slots. It's thanks to his management skill that he was able to adjust the level of the skills he collected, and also carry around more skills that will fit in his slot with him. The older man turns away. He didn't know a skill could be used like that. As he walks away, the collector asks if the sage plans to follow his grandson around like this. The older man answers that as long as his body still holds itself together, he's determined to watch over his grandson each and every day. The collector's taken aback by his answer. That's a bit too overprotective, don't you think? Why is the elder sage willing to go this far for his grandson? The older man sits on a nearby boulder and admits that he's doing it to atone for his family. Several decades ago, back when he was much younger, the sage admits how he was so consumed by his own skills that he neglected his family. He spent hours and hours reading books, expanding his knowledge, and after reading all that was available there, he still wanted more, believing he was worthy of having it. After spending the whole day reading, he goes home and is welcomed by his wife and daughter. And yet, he walks past them, simply because he has no interest in them. He was like that for many years, and merely established a family for the sake of appearances. The sage was hell-bent on fulfilling his thirst for knowledge. Then there came a time when his daughter shared that she was about to get married, but it all fell on his deaf ears. He didn't care about his wife or his daughter's family at all. Since he had already read every book there was in the country, he set off on a long journey to neighboring countries to learn more of what the other countries had to offer. One day he finally finished all the books there were. Instead of feeling accomplished, he felt something was off. He was wondering what to do next when it finally occurred to him that he was blessed with all these skills, and if his thirst for knowledge was finally quenched, what's next? He realized that nothing happened after that. All this knowledge, yet what is this for? He goes to his desk and sees letters from his daughter. If this knowledge is not for him, then surely it's for someone precious, no? He opens the letters and finally reads them. As soon as he did, he decided to return to the country. He finally makes it home one rainy day, announcing his return at the threshold, but there is no one to welcome him. As he walks inside, his own daughter is surprised to see him. She starts glaring at him immediately, asking why he even bothered to come home at this point. She relays how her mother and husband already died from the epidemic, and that it was only she and her child left. But who is she kidding? Her own father won't give a crap about that anyway. To her shock, the sage went down on his knees and apologized to her. Even he can't help but cry at how foolish he was as a father. Seeing him like that, his daughter says he can't do much for her since she's also dying. However, if he truly wants to atone for his sins, then the least he could do is to be there for his grandson. With that, the sage walks into the next room with his daughter telling him to protect her son. The young boy calls out to his grandfather as the older man takes his small hands into his. Shortly after, his daughter passed away. Still, the regret from neglecting his family for years never left him. What he's doing at this point is still not enough for atonement. Still, he has already decided that he'll dedicate everything he has to his only family from now on. The collector asks if he's willing to do that even at the expense of selling off the skills he was blessed with. The older man nods in confirmation. If anything, the one skill he needs right now is the one that allows him to remember the faces and the time he spent with his family. This is why his memory skill is all that he needs. The collector is surprised and unconsciously touches the locket with his sister's drawings at the mention of families' faces and his time with them, because he too suddenly remembers the time he spent with his sister. Surely those instances are things you don't want to forget. The collector confirms with the sage if he still has a spare skill slot, because in reality the younger man has a rather special skill he's been saving. But if it's the older man, then he doesn't mind selling it to the sage. The collector adds that this skill will enable the older man to watch over his grandson until his death. What? This is the first time the sage has heard something about this. Does the collector really have a skill like that? Then it would mean that the skill will be expensive, right? The collector continues that this skill is pretty unique and will be sold at level 50. With such a high level, the older man would have to give up all his wealth to afford it. But he didn't even get to finish his sentence because the sage was already looking at him with determination. By now, the collector should know what the older man's answer is, right? Well, that seals the deal then. The following day at the city square, the grandson's party is gathered together, curious about this new member who will be joining them today. According to the boy, this person said he really wants to join their party, which left the other two members wondering why. Well, even the boy has no idea why, but it's better for adventurers to have more allies, right? The collector sits at a nearby bench, listening to their exchange, when suddenly the boy cries out that their newest member is coming. A young boy shyly walks up to them, apologizing for making them wait. He introduces himself as Lou and promises he won't cause trouble for the others. The party members only stare back at him before they start laughing and breaking the tense atmosphere. What's up with the way he talks? He's like an old man. Even the boy says Lou sounds like his grandfather, but whatever, because now he welcomes Lou to their party. The collector looks back at their group with a smile, saying how he seems to have done a pretty good job at joining his grandson's party. You see, the skill he sold to the sage is called Youthful Mask. It's a rare skill that only elves possess. At level 50, those who use this skill can appear 50 years younger than their original age, but it just works on their appearances though. The elder sage didn't really regain his youth since it's only his appearance that has become much younger. The collector didn't expect to hear such a deeply personal story, but since the elder sage found the right skill, he's just happy that everything worked out for the older man. With his work done, the collector resumes his travel and along the way, makes a mental note to restock on Youthful Mask. Just then, he sees a girl trip and drop her basket of flowers a few feet ahead of him. The poor girl accidentally stepped straight into the canal, so the collector helped her up on her feet to check if she was okay. The two were locked in a gaze before the girl hung her head low, apologizing and thanking him. She starts coughing as she says so, assuring him that things like this always happen. However, her flowers are all soiled now, but she still needs to sell them. The collector says the flowers still look fine enough to sell, leaving her a bit surprised. But she's even more surprised when he says he would like to purchase all of them from her. He reiterated that he wants to buy all of her flowers, something she still can't believe, so she had to ask if he was being serious. When he said yes, the girl thanked him and started wrapping the flowers for the collector. While she's busy doing so, the collector sees she has a pretty troublesome trio of skills: bad luck, sickliness, and weak constitution. Throughout his skill collecting service, he has seen a lot of people's skills. But this girl right here? It's pretty rare to find such a nasty combination of skills. But then again, he thought that even purely negative skills have uses in unexpected places. For that, he made a note to stock them at his collector service. Just then, the girl speaks, snapping the collector back to reality, as he listens to her say that she's glad because her little brother and sister can eat their fill today. Once he hears that she has siblings, he can't help but flash back to a certain memory he has with his older sister. Back then, he remembers seeing her still up, making him worry since she hadn't slept yet, but she assures him that she was just drawing pictures to sell, apologizing if she had woken him up accidentally. The younger collector approaches her, feeling bad and wishing he could help earn money. What this young girl said just reminded the collector how he and her sister used to struggle a lot too. He produces a thick wad of cash, alarming the girl as she starts waving it off. She can't accept that much. But the collector insists, given how it wasn't even half of what he got. He adds that he made a bit of money today, saying he just wants to share his good fortune. Well, if that's the case, the girl gladly accepts his payment. As soon as he hands him the money, he tells her the deal is sealed, with their hands glowing as soon as he says so. The girl also saw that, asking what that light was, and the collector casually told her that it was just a bit of a good luck charm. She thanks him for it, but the collector says he should be the one saying thank you instead. With that, he watches the girl walk away, adding that he's looking forward to her future business because he just sold her a new skill. Good luck. On the other hand, he acquired all 3 troublesome skills he used to have. The activation condition for his trading skill is that he needs the consent of the other party and monetary compensation. She might think the money is too much, but on the collector's end, he actually feels a little bad since he paid a cheap price for 3 skills. This is why he sold her good luck to make the difference, hoping that she'll like it. As for these flowers in his hands, they're still a bit dirty, but he notes how they still have a pleasing smell. Now that he thought about it, maybe he should try bringing flowers next time as a gift for his friend. Just like that, the next day came, and the collector busied himself in the market looking for things to bring to his friend. Necessities are a must, and since it's getting colder, he figured having medicine on hand would also be ideal. In the end, the collector may have bought quite a lot for his friend as he carries the bagged items in both hands. Just then, someone calls out to him. It's the lady from whom he bought the monster attraction skill the other day. Oh yeah, this was his first customer when he got into town. He asks her how things are lately, and she happily shares how the monsters have stopped coming ever since then. Because of that, she was able to leave town and stock up on ingredients. In line with that, her dream of opening her own diner has come true. She tugs him along, and just as she said, the diner will be on the first floor of her inn. Well, that's great to hear. But the collector's sentiments were overpowered by the lady's voice. She can't help but thank him for collecting that troublesome skill. Her genuine feelings of gratitude reached him, and as always, he's just happy he could help. Since he's already here, she also opened up about how she's looking for some staff, suggesting the position to the collector. In fact, she believes he'd look great in an apron while serving their customers. She happily puts the job flyer on his things, even though he turns the job offer down, seeing how he's already busy enough as it is with his collector service. Well, that's a shame. The lady turns and waves him goodbye, saying she'll just have to offer the job to someone else then. Once she's gone, he checks the flyer and goes on his way. A part-time job, huh? Maybe he can offer it to the friend he's about to meet. He quickly scratched that idea out, knowing this friend of his isn't suited to places with people. Just then, he sees the flower girl from before and she's still selling flowers. It's the unlucky girl from the other day. Two kids approach her at the same time, and as soon as they were in front of her, they started bickering over who gets first dibs on the flowers since one claims he got there first. But the other counters that he has the money for the flowers. She pats both of their heads after giving them halves of the bouquet, praising them for doing such a good job on their errands. The collector remembers just now that this girl said she's looking after a little brother and sister. He approaches her and asks if he could buy a bouquet. The girl's face instantly lights up. It's him. It's the buyer from the other day. The collector is surprised that she still remembers him, and of course she does. She was so happy that he bought her flowers back then. He can't help but comment in his mind how hardworking she is, and it makes him think that she's a good fit for dealing with customers. She hands him the flowers, which remind him of the flyer the lady from before gave her. Naturally, the collector gave this to the girl, who got pretty excited at the prospect of having a part-time job. He briefly explains that he just happened to get a copy of the flyer and assures her that it's okay if she turns it down. But that's the thing, she would actually love to do it. In fact, she's looking for a job right now. Wait, she is? The girl affirms and beams because not only did her horrible asthma finally clear up, but she's also not falling or bumping into things as much. The collector only stared but didn't bother telling her that the reason for that is that he bought her troublesome skills of bad luck, weak constitution, and sickliness from her. At times like these, the collector is reminded again just how amazing skills can be. Well, it's about time for him to leave since he needs to go before the sun sets. The girl is surprised to know that he's leaving, and with a smile, he says it's to visit a friend. He already has his back turned when the girl calls out to him asking if it's alright for her to know his name. After all, he bought her flowers, and now he even gave her the opportunity for a new job. He smiles and says that he's simply called the collector, and that he's just a mere traveling peddler. With that, he finally walks away as the girl stares at his retreating back, wondering if they will ever meet again. In the middle of a vast nowhere where mountain ranges are as far as the eye can see, everything is practically covered in a white blanket of snow. Many of the trees have shed their leaves, just as the collector patiently traverses this rough mountain trail, struggling to do so even if he's already using some of his skill products. Soon enough, he sees a log cabin and greets a long-haired man who's busy chopping firewood. The collector hands him the goods he bought from town, while the other man hurriedly runs over to him to help him with his things. That's when the other man noticed the bouquet of flowers. That's pretty cute. But the man knows this isn't the collector's doing. Did a woman do it? He breaks into a laugh as he asks the collector this. But this long-haired man is right, though. After all, the bouquet came from the girl. This put the other man off a little, as he hoped his friend wouldn't turn out to be some creep. But frivolities aside, the long-haired man pulls the collector as he sits on one of the tree stumps. He breaks into a smile, asking for the usual from the collector. And you know what? He thinks it might go well this time. The collector smiled. Of course, the gifts were just an added bonus. The usual is what he came for in this secluded cabin anyway. You see, this man is a longtime regular of our protagonist. He'd even go as far as to say he considers him one of his few friends. As for the world and everybody else, they call this man the unskilled. The long-haired man asks the collector to use his skill on him, which the latter agrees to. The collector closes his eyes, and as soon as he opens them, he activates his appraisal skill, while the other guy sits patiently. Our protagonist makes a face, and that alone is enough for the man to know what the verdict is. The collector apologizes, but the man just brushes it off. What is he even apologizing for? This is beyond the collector's control. The man gets up from the tree stump and heads to his cabin, saying he'll just have to keep working harder then. If anything, he's been considering doing some art lately, and he even carved a few figures and offered to give some of his work to the collector. Our protagonist grabs one of the carved figures in his hands, and after a beat, he asks the other guy, "Won't he stop this already?" He continues, saying that 1 out of 1,000 people is born unskilled. He already said this before, right? The collector lays it hard on him. This guy doesn't have any skill slots at all. This is the reason why the collector can't sell him any skills, and he'll never be able to awaken any skills as well. Before he can say the next sentence, the other guy beats him to it, so his efforts are wasted, right? The man refuses to do so, saying he won't give up on awakening his own skill. Hearing him say that, the collector is a little bit blinded again by this man's intense passion. If anything, the guy still has the same intensity in his eyes as the day they met all those years ago. Many years ago, before he became the long-haired, muscular man that he is today, he was just a small boy. If there's anything different about him, it's the fact that there's a defiant look in his eyes, which probably stems from his experience. He met the collector one day after hearing the latter calling out to the people that he would buy their unneeded skills. The little boy calls out to our protagonist, asking him if he will throw out the skills he collected. If he's going to do that, then the boy says he should just let him have those skills instead. The collector is startled by this gutsy kid. It's not every day people ask about the skills he collects after all. Anyway, why would this kid even— oh wait. To the collector's surprise, this kid has a blank. There aren't even any skill slots on him. As if to confirm what he already knows, some random kid from the street calls the boy skill-less. This other kid starts calling him inept and tells him that he should stay out of town. But the smaller boy wasn't even intimidated. He fires back, saying his skills just haven't awakened yet, believing that you can get skills with hard work. But the bigger kid says that's impossible. He insists that the boy is inept, which explains why his parents abandoned him. The smaller boy argues that it's possible. If he trains hard and secludes himself in the mountains, he's pretty sure his skills will awaken soon enough. With that, he stomps away, dragging the collector into their petty fight, claiming how the latter's useless if he can't even give him any skill. He vows to get a skill, just you wait. Did that rowdy kid really seclude himself in the mountains? The collector wonders if that kid really did what he said he would. There's just no way, right? Still, our protagonist makes his way to the mountain just to be sure. Lo and behold, that gutsy kid really is training hard to get his skills. Despite the snow and the late night, the boy keeps swinging his stick. He huffs, muttering to himself that he'll keep swinging this stick for 100 times a day. If he keeps doing it, maybe a skill like swordsmanship or brute force. Heck, he'd even be okay if intuition were to manifest too. He really said out loud with his whole chest that if he works hard, he can awaken a skill. This boy's tenacity stirred something in the collector's heart, making him drop his lamp. Looking at him training so intently, our protagonist doubts whether it was okay for him to call out to this kid. If anything, it made him remember how he started to collect people's discarded skills with his trading, so he could meet his older sister. In doing so, he also used those skills throughout his travels, like speech, acting, appraisal, and even eternal youth, to name a few. Over the years, he has handled a lot of skills that, before he realized it, he may have forgotten the spirit he once had back in the olden days. The boy was startled by the sound of something crashing, looking around to see if someone else was in the area with him. With that, he decided that to meet this boy where he's currently at, our protagonist will remove all skills from his slots and will only maintain the necessary ones like management, eternal youth, and appraisal. The collector picks up his fallen lantern and approaches the boy. The latter is on guard but relaxes a bit when he sees the familiar face of the collector. It's that man from earlier today. The collector introduces himself and explains why he is there. He was simply worried for the boy, so he went around looking for him. The boy isn't happy that the collector came to see him because he's interrupting his training. If he was just going to make fun of the kid, then he might as well beat it. The collector stutters and can't explain himself fully. It's no surprise because all this time he's been reliant on the speech and acting skills, so his words aren't coming out as easily. He remembers his frustration as a kid back then, so this time he tries talking to the kid again, saying that if the boy happens to awaken a skill, he won't be able to prove it's true without an appraisal, right? For that, the collector offers to appraise him for him, asking if the boy is okay with him coming over to do that. The next year, the collector came back as promised, but much to the boy's shock. He didn't expect our hero to honor his word. What an odd one this guy is. While he's there, the collector also appraises him, only to discover that the boy still has no skill. But the kid is undeterred and continues practicing. Before long, the kid outgrew the collector. The next time they met, our protagonist even cared for the now young man when he got sick. Before long, the collector is looking up to him, as not only has the boy grown taller, but he also looks incredibly older than the former. Back to the present, the now muscular man turns and asks the collector what's up after noticing the latter was spacing out. But before our protagonist can answer, the man launches into his story on how he beat an intermediate monster just the other day with a single swing. Isn't that amazing? The collector remembers how it used to take a whole night for the man to beat a single monster, so he still remembers that. Just like that, 50 years have passed since the collector met this man. Obviously, he's not young anymore. Our protagonist can't help but wonder if rooting for this man's wish would end up with him in a situation that would kill him. Of course, our protagonist doesn't want that to happen, which is why he decided it's time to stop him now. Just when he was about to speak up, the man cried out happily that he was a step closer to awakening his skill. Once he has his skill, he'll become a beacon of hope to all the unskilled out there. Well, seeing him like that, the collector really doesn't have the heart to stop the guy, so he can only show support for his friend. The man turns to the collector and breaks into a smile, saying the latter is a terrible liar. Later that day, a blizzard enveloped the whole village. The collector checks in at a local inn, mulling over how he couldn't stop his friend again. He's still worried about the man because the human body is weak, so he's sure it won't bode well for his friend. Since our protagonist was seated at the counter, the bartender struck up a conversation asking the collector if he was also stuck because of the blizzard. Our protagonist says yes and adds that he was visiting a friend who lives in the mountains nearby. Wait, did he say a friend living in the mountains? Oh, so he must be referring to that strange Gramps, right? The bartender said he had heard about the old man a lot from other travelers. The bartender shared that the travelers tell stories about some buff old guy fighting monsters. His friend does stand out, doesn't he? Anyway, the bartender told the collector that he should stay out of the mountains for now because some vicious monster showed up. Even the country issued a warning. Despite that, some adventurers went to the mountains and ignored the warning, though. The collector asked if the monster really was vicious, and the bartender said it was some sort of bipedal white giant. The collector takes a gulp of his drink, thinking that it must be a yeti. If that's the case, then his friend can beat the monster no problem. That's when the bartender told him that the monster was something even bigger. It was 3 times the size of one. From what he heard, it's a giant that can breathe cold air. The collector slams his payment on the table and hurries out the door. Somewhere else in the snowy mountains, the group of adventurers stands behind the collector's friend as the man taunts their giant enemy. He's excited since this is his first time seeing such a huge monster. And this was no ordinary monster indeed, it's a frost giant. The adventurers are overcome with fear, so the collector's friend took it upon himself to deal with the monster. Despite the frost giant being far more powerful, the man seems to be even more excited to fight such an enemy. On the other hand, there's our protagonist, running through the biting cold and snow to go to his friend. Ordinary people wouldn't even dare to challenge the frost giant since it's a gigantic monster that's top class among the giant tribe, so for his unskilled friend to battle it, he's sure it would end up badly. A party of adventurers can't even handle one frost giant, so what can his unskilled friend even do in the face of such power? But knowing his friend, the collector has a hunch that the man would probably challenge it to try and awaken his skills. Darn it, despite using the skills he has in his inventory, the collector still couldn't move fast enough. But up ahead he can already see 2 signals. One is the frost giant, but who is the other one? The collector arrived on the scene just in time to see his friend suffer a direct hit from the monster's attack. His friend got thrown into a nearby trunk, so the collector rushes over to him asking if he's okay. Despite being bloodied, the man told the collector not to interfere. This is his fight. He's still holding on to the belief that if he beats the monster, then he'll be able to obtain a skill. The man takes a deep breath before letting out a battle cry, enough to shake the whole mountain and even make the frost giant itself flinch. It was just a moment, but the man took it as a sign and grinned. With that, he runs straight to the frost giant with his sword and jumps straight into the monster's mouth with the latter readying his icy breath. The man manages to cut down the frost giant, but the monster manages to get in one last hit, striking the collector's body with so much force that he is sent flying to the snowy fields. Both combatants fell at the same time, with the monster covered in its own blood. While the adventurers stay huddled together, they continue to look from a distance and see that the frost giant isn't moving. The old man dealt a fatal blow to the monster, but speaking of, where is the old guy? The collector kneels right in front of his bloodied friend. The man is panting heavily from his wounds, but he's still smiling, asking the collector if he saw that. An unskilled man actually beat a frost giant all on his own, but the collector paid no mind, telling his friend not to speak anymore. He's more concerned about the grave injuries his friend has, but the man says it's fine. Since they're already here, he asks the collector if he could do it for him one last time, to check his skills with appraisal. The collector holds his friend's hand and agrees, and after a beat, the man asks what the result is. The collector congratulates his friend, saying his skill is roar. With what little strength he has, the man manages to laugh, reaching his hand out to the collector's crying face, saying how much of a terrible liar he is up to the very end. Just like that, the frost giant is dead, the adventurers made their escape, and the collector carried his friend's body back to his cabin. The collector buried him and went to the back of the cabin, where he found a log that was partly carved in. His recently passed friend carved "inept man" on the log. Looking at the item, the collector couldn't help but break down and cry again. Did his friend carve a name like this by himself? Our protagonist grabs one of his friend's sharpened tools and starts carving something on the log. His friend wasn't an inept man. The collector knows and watched him do his best all his life. He says aloud how his friend was a wonderful person who didn't let himself be defeated by fate. The collector used the log as his friend's gravestone, adding the word "outstanding" to the already carved "inept man" from before. Our protagonist spent a while kneeling in front of his grave, and after a while he got up and said he'll bring his friend more flowers once spring comes. Just like that, winter ended, and at the first sign of spring the cabin remains untouched, but there are already flowers on his grave. 2 pairs of feet were seen at the man's property, and these passers-by were surprised to see a cabin so deep in the mountains. Then they finally saw the grave. One of the passers-by, a girl, read what was written on the gravestone: "Outstanding inept man." The girl burst out laughing. What an odd thing to write. It's a bit ridiculous, right? She turns to her companion, whom she calls elder sister. And true enough, it is the collector's elder sister. In this world, there are things called skills, and our protagonist trades those skills as a collector. Right now, he's down in the dumps, sitting by himself at a local diner. Before he could stop it, the image of his recently passed friend flashed into his mind. He hangs his head lower, muttering about how this is bad. He needs a change. As if God or some divine entity heard him, the lady from before called out to him. She welcomes him, thanking our protagonist for visiting her diner so soon. He says that it's a given, seeing that her diner has been open for a few days already. Still, the older lady thanks our protagonist for taking the time and dropping by her little business. After all, this place is only made possible thanks to him. She would love to stay and chat more, but the collector understands she has her hands full at the moment. He says it's okay and he didn't want to take more of her time. The lady says they've been short-staffed, but just recently, a hard-working and earnest kid joined them. Right when she said that, the lady called the newcomer, Violet, asking her to come over. A pretty girl with a spring in her step suddenly appears. The girl walks happily over to them, dish in hand, when she finally realizes who she's serving. It's the collector. The latter looks at her, looking to see if she really was that flower salesgirl from before. But then again, he remembered he had given her that job flyer from before. The glow-up is real because he almost didn't recognize her just now. The collector asks if she's already used to the job, which she says she is. Then she hands him her order, steamed buns with herbs. The collector thanks her, but Violet is looking at the other customers who are eating hearty meals. Compared to them, the collector's meal is pretty basic. She suggests he try their Salisbury steak for their lunch menu, but he just tells her that he'll order that for next time since he just got back from a long trip. Well, if that's the case, Violet didn't push it any further. She walks back to the kitchen, but not before looking back at the collector's lonesome table one more time. After eating, our protagonist starts walking around town thinking about how life goes on as usual, even when someone dies. Since he's already done with his skill collecting service for the day, he's thinking of getting some flowers as an offering on his way back. But the flower salesgirl must have closed up shop, no? Not 1 second after thinking that, the collector bumps into Violet, who is still selling flowers. She can't help but comment on how they've been bumping into each other that day. He's more surprised that she's still selling flowers in the evening, to which Violet says she does to make a bit of extra money. As for the flowers, she grew them in a garden at home. The collector heaves a sigh of relief, saying he needed to get some flowers for a friend. She notices the somber aura around him, so she takes this chance to ask if he has had dinner yet. Though surprised, the collector tells her that he hasn't eaten yet. Well, her mom has a cultivation skill and raises some pretty good vegetables back at home. With that said, she asks the collector if he wants to have dinner at her place, huh? He's not following what she's getting at, and that's when Violet tells him that maybe he'll cheer up if he eats something good. She can't help but notice how he looked really depressed earlier that afternoon, which shocked her. He's amazed at how perceptive this girl is. The collector has done so much for her, which is why she wants to repay him in some way. She warns him in advance that their house is small and shabby, but since he's already moved by her sincerity, the collector takes her up on that offer. Later that afternoon, just before the sun sets, they head to her house. On the way, they talked about things in general, and she couldn't help but notice how he's such a great conversationalist. In his line of work, he needs it. Besides the fact that he actually has the skills needed for it under his belt, thanks to his skill collecting service. Just like that, they arrived at a bit of a rundown and modest house. As they entered the building, he noticed a lot of vegetation planted in their front yard. Thanks to his stocked night vision, he can see that the vegetables are in great condition and that the overall garden is wonderfully tended. Meanwhile, Violet announces at the doorway that she brought the collector along with her, asking if it's okay for him to join them for dinner. An older woman's voice can be heard, welcoming her. If she had known that they'd be having a guest, Violet's mother says she could have prepared something to make for a better reception. Then there's her little brother and sister, curious if this older brother is the collector their big sis has been talking about. And that's quite a bag he got there. The collector introduces himself and humbly greets them, while Violet introduces him to their small family of 4, consisting of her mother, her little brother, and her little sister. After exchanging greetings, her mother urges him to take a seat while she prepares their dinner. Violet volunteers to help, leaving the collector with her 2 siblings. The little boy approaches the collector excitedly, saying how their older sister said the latter was the one who introduced Violet to her job. The collector smiled as he said he did, while the little girl asked what he did. Our protagonist simply tells them that he trades and collects unneeded skills. The little girl's voice rises in excitement, causing Violet to look their way. Meanwhile, her younger siblings are already asking if the collector would buy their skills from them. Actually, they still don't even know what their skills are since their family is poor, and the free group appraisal won't be available for a few years. The collector turns to their busy mother first before facing them again, and asking if they would like to get their skills appraised for free. The kids' eyes twinkled as they grabbed this opportunity, but their mother was not quite into it, looking over Violet as she said so. The collector knows that if these kids have negative skills like their older sister, then they could get shocked at the result of their appraisals. However, from his perspective, the 2 have pretty decent skills. The little boy has grit, fleet-footed, and stout as his skills. His sister, on the other hand, has calculation, presence detection, and intimidation. The collector whispers to their mother, assuring her that the 2 kids' skills are outstanding. With that said, it's okay to tell them what their skills are, leaving the older lady relieved. So while Violet and her mother were preparing dinner, the collector played with the young ones. And Violet? Well, she was today years old when she found out that the things the collector was collecting were actually skills. Her mother tells her that she's not that blessed with her skills. However, the older lady assured her that she doesn't need to worry anymore, seeing how Violet's asthma has also calmed down lately. On top of that, Violet also noticed that she doesn't bump into things as much. All of that happened when the collector bought all the flowers from her the first time they met. For some reason, she also remembered him giving more than double the money, too. Could it be? Just like that, a hearty dinner is served. Everyone settled down at the table, including the collector. He takes a bite, and as soon as he does, he feels comfortable, despite it being a simple dish. He's not surprised because he knows the dish is flavored with a pack of love. It isn't anything like what he knew. Ironically, the delicious food served before him reminded him of how harsh his parents were to him and how his sister was the only one on his side. Violet quickly notices him zoning out, so she asks him if there's something he doesn't like. The collector says the food tastes delicious, resuming eating as he said so. After dinner, the collector spent more time with the kids, to the point that it was getting way too late for them. They were yawning and exhausted from talking too much today. Their mother asks if they're ready to get tucked in, and the collector offered to do that for her since the older lady still has some cleaning left to do. He says he's got some stories from his work and travels that would do well as bedtime stories for the kids. She took him up on that offer, so the collector and the kids headed to the bedroom where he started to narrate his experiences. But right when he was about to start the next story about the dragon, the boy asked if they could ask the collector for a favor before he left. Both kids move closer as the boy asks if the collector can buy their skills. They're well aware that their family is poor, so they're hoping that if they can sell their skills, they can make their whole family's life a bit easier. The collector stares back at these two. They may be young, but they treasure their family so much. It even made him feel a little jealous. He pats both their heads and explains that what he collects are unneeded skills. As long as the two develop their skills, they can use them for their futures. However, if there comes a time when they really need money, then they can just talk to him. After he put them in bed, Violet's mother approached him, thanking him for tucking the kids in. He says he's happy to do it, which reminds her of how he also treated her eldest, Violet. Well, she notes that Violet has become more cheerful lately, and she feels bad because as a mother, she thinks all she does is cause trouble for their children. With that said, she asks the collector if he would be willing to buy her skills. She wants to get a bit of savings so she can make her children's lives easier. The collector, on the other hand, is speechless. She just said the same thing her kids had said a few minutes ago. He pauses for a bit before telling the older lady that their home is so happy that it dazzles him. In his profession, he has seen a lot of families. Then he mentions how skills have the power to change a person's life just by having them. He accepts trading requests from people who are troubled by their skills, but he doesn't buy skills to give people a one-time payment. Money can't buy a happy life after all. The older woman understood and didn't press on. It did make her happy to hear that their little family looked happy. The collector even admits to her that he's jealous of it. Well, if that's the case, then why not just become part of their family? The older lady even tells him that Violet has a lot of good qualities. Huh? At the mention of her name, Violet comes rushing, embarrassed at the way her mom is setting her up with him. Violet blushes, telling her mom not to say weird stuff since she's bothering the collector. Well, her mother thought she'd be happy about it, so it made Violet even more embarrassed. Watching them like this, the collector's a little surprised that she can be pushy when she's mad. He smiles as he's about to exit their home, saying he feels jealous of them. He tells them that being with such a happy family cheered him up somewhat. With that, he walks out of their home. Sure, it felt good, but for him, there's something uncomfortable about the warmth. Just then, Violet grabs his clothes. She can't look at him directly, but she tells him not to pay attention to what her mom said. Still, he's also welcome to their place anytime he wants, so he should feel free to rely on them if he's not feeling well. She promises to make herself useful to him when that time comes. Seeing her sincerity, the collector can only grit his teeth, thinking that a warm home is too dazzling for him. Still, he thanked her for the offer. If anything, he feels like a moth drawn to light in the dark. It makes him wonder if it's all right for him to be charmed by it and long for it. This time, the collector finds himself at the back of a traveling wagon in an open field. He hitched a ride on a carriage, thinking it would be a nice change to do business in the east this time. The other travelers on board strike up a conversation, saying the area is pretty calm and peaceful. Some monsters occasionally pop up in the area, but they're weak enough for the villagers to handle by themselves. The collector agrees, and since there's nothing else for him to do, he decides to check on the skills he has in stock. Just then, their carriage suddenly stops, prompting the other passenger to ask what's wrong. Their carriage driver shouts at the person in front of them to move away, angry at the dangerous stunt he pulled. The person in front of them is a long-haired young man, panic-stricken, begging them to come to his village. The carriage driver explains that they're set to go far to the east along this road. He can't make a stop and asks the young man to move aside. This time, the young man becomes even more frantic, telling them that a swarm of monsters is about to appear in his village, asking them for help. Huh? A swarm of monsters? In a peaceful place like this? They almost scratch their heads because how does this kid even know that? The question catches him off guard, but he tells them that he has a skill that's something akin to premonition. The traveler on board the carriage finds this kid sketchy. It almost feels like he's lying. The collector, on the other hand, is already interested. The carriage driver has had enough of the kid's shenanigans, saying they don't have time for his fake premonitions. With that, he hurries the carriage along, forcing the young man out of the way. The young man starts cursing aloud. Why doesn't anyone understand? Meanwhile, the collector watches him as their carriage speeds away, curious about the boy's skill. What was that? He's seen hundreds if not thousands of skills as a collector, but he has never seen anything quite like this. He uses his appraisal skill and sees that the young man has a strange skill called Return by Death, besides his swordsmanship and tenacity skills. This is the first time the collector has ever seen a skill like this. With that, he tells the carriage driver to drop him off here. As for the young man, he has become hopeless, believing that he failed this time too. But his lamentations got cut short when he heard a voice asking if he could tell him more about the thing he mentioned. The collector introduces himself as what else? The collector. Meanwhile, the young man says his name is Ripley. He remembers the collector was on board the carriage earlier, but before the latter can answer, Ripley thanks the collector because he's the only one who listened to him. He immediately tells the collector that in a few minutes, an earthquake will strike the region, which will cause the entrance to a cave that seals monsters to collapse. From there, a swarm of monsters will attack his village. The collector quietly listens to Ripley's story, thinking that it's only natural that people refuse to believe him, seeing how this is such a peaceful place. As if Ripley read his mind, the former adds that he knows he sounds crazy with the story, and that the collector may not believe him. To that, our protagonist answers that he believes Ripley. On his side, he explains that he has a skill called appraisal due to his work. However, he has never seen a skill like Ripley's in his line of work. Ripley's Return by Death is similar to the collector's trading. It has no precedent in the past or present since it's an only skill. Ripley is shocked to discover that the other also has an only skill too. The collector wants to know more about Ripley's skill since he may be able to help. After a beat, Ripley agrees. He starts by saying, Return by Death means that when he dies, time across the entire world rewinds to 24 hours before his death. No one else remembers this except him. As of now, the world has repeated 4 times already. Wait a minute, the collector recalls the activities he did in the last 24 hours. He arrived at the town where the carriage to the east departed 24 hours ago. After staying the night at a local inn, he boarded the carriage this morning. So does that mean he has already done all of that 4 times already? Ripley affirms and says yes. Furthermore, he adds that the skill activates when he dies, dragging the entire world into an endless loop. The collector finds it hard to believe, but they continue walking. Soon, they encounter an intersection with a signpost in the middle. Ripley says following the road north leads to his village. But the collector still has a few more questions. How does Ripley know that the world is the same? Is he traversing various possible worlds? Ripley relates how during his second death, a child from the village knew the name of a flower he had taught her the first time. However, that girl doesn't remember where she had heard it, which confused her as to why she knew the flower's name. So, to test things, Ripley told her about the flower's toxicity. On his next death and comeback, the girl knew not only the flower's name but also its toxicity as well. Like the first time, she couldn't remember where she learned it. The collector asks if knowledge carries over, and Ripley says yes. Furthermore, his skill isn't about moving or traveling, it's about returning through death. The collector is having a hard time processing all these pieces of information, including how the world has already repeated 4 times, and that knowledge is passed on from time to time. But what about skills? If someone were to use appraisal or plunder during the 24-hour loop caused by Ripley's death, they might notice something is off with their skills, right? There's no way the collector's sister would overlook something like this. It got him thinking that maybe, if he stays close to Ripley, his sister may notice something off about the world and come here. There's a chance that he may be able to meet his sister at last, but he had to cast that thought aside as the ground shook the next moment. Unlike him, who lost his balance somewhat, Ripley stood firmly. He says it's starting again. Our protagonist has a hard time standing up because he can't find his footing. Is this the earthquake Ripley was talking about earlier? Ripley narrates what happens next, saying the cave's entrance has collapsed again just now, thus unleashing the monsters. He starts crashing out, wondering if he'll die again this time. And does this mean the villagers would also die? There's just no way they can defeat that horde of monsters with just the 2 of them. Seeing Ripley distraught made our protagonist remember that this young man had died 4 times already. He thought that it would be far too cruel to sacrifice Ripley's spirit just so he could see his sister again. Besides, if the world continues to loop because of Ripley's skill, even the future where he continues looking for her sister may not exist, since it's imprisoned beyond his reach. The collector has decided. He calls out to Ripley, saying he'll give the other man a cut-rate sale with his merchandise skills so they can defeat those monsters together. True to Ripley's words, the entrance seal to the Cave of Monsters is broken, and a great horde of them emerges from the cave. Meanwhile, somewhere near the cave, Ripley rummages through his pockets for some cash, and feels bad that this is the only money he has. But the collector says it's fine for this time. With that, he sells Ripley a few offensive skills like advanced swordsmanship, perception, and physical ability. Their hands glowed upon touching, sealing the deal as Ripley's new skills manifested on him. With these, he can finally stand up to the swarm of monsters. He can finally overturn fate and save his village. Seeing how determined he is about saving his village, the collector had to ask the unthinkable. Has Ripley ever thought about running away instead to avoid dying? Ripley calls bull on that option. He would never run away from his only skill. He claims that if you can wind back fate, then he wants to save his village from the monsters. The collector kept quiet, but in his mind he just hoped this young man's ideal won't come back to bite him in the end. But more important than that, Ripley tells him that the cave is just ahead. The place is already swarming with low-class and intermediate-class monsters, but he has already spotted a high-class one. The 2 make their way to the root of the problem and see a couple of monsters lying in wait inside the cave. Ripley dashes ahead, while our protagonist hangs back for a little bit. If Ripley dies this time, the world will rewind again. The knowledge and skills will surely be passed on. This means that if he notices the skills he sold to Ripley are missing from his inventory, he'll know something serious is going on even if he can't remember what happened after the rewind. Ripley continues to charge forward, slashing every monster that comes his way. He's even come to the point of enjoying this whole takedown, amazed at the advanced swordsmanship skill. Plus, the perception skill also makes it seem like Ripley's enemies are standing still. The collector says he'll deal with the low-class monster using his stocked skills so Ripley can take care of the intermediate ones. Our protagonist readies his fire magic skill while Ripley runs ahead, and just as suddenly he stopped mid-track. Before him were 2 intermediate monsters, but Ripley held his ground. Before one of them could attack, Ripley cut them down swiftly. The other one lunges toward him with its claws out and manages to scratch Ripley's arm. But a wound like this isn't even a scratch compared to dying. From the back, the collector asks if he's okay, saying he'll join Ripley since he's already done dealing with the low-class monsters. Ripley continues to cut the monsters down, saying there's no problem. He has become confident, telling the collector that with these skills he got from the ladder, he can take on any enemy easy peasy. At last, he can finally change his fate. But Ripley didn't even get to finish the sentence as a bigger monster appeared and beheaded him in one swipe. Ripley's humble village is shaken by an unexpected earthquake. The citizens find that odd, even Ripley too, as he stands before a little girl. This is a pretty peaceful place, so an earthquake like that is definitely out of the ordinary. Before long, one of the villagers points out that something is coming from the mountains outside the village. They didn't have to wonder for too long once the monsters appeared and started wreaking havoc in the village. Ripley himself got bitten by one. And this is the first time his skill was activated. He died without understanding what was going on. Before he realized it, he heard his name being called. As he realized he was in the middle of sword practice, one of his colleagues asked what he was spacing out for. As for Ripley, he was shaken, looking at his hands. Didn't he die just now? He asked them what time and day it is, then bolts straight to the village square. He cries out to get everyone's attention, telling them that monsters will soon swarm the village, asking everyone to flee. But they were just confused. Monsters? In a peaceful village like this? What made him say that? Ripley tells them that his skill has finally activated, his return by death. This is him coming back from the future. But instead of heeding his warnings, the townsfolk are more focused on Ripley's mysterious skill. They tell him that he's been in the village the whole time. There's no way he came back from the future. Surely that must be a dream, right? But no sooner had they said that than the ground started to shake, quickly followed by a swarm of monsters. Ripley watches the whole town get wiped out by the monsters, and even he suffers a grave injury. He feels distraught at how he couldn't make a single person believe him. His wounds started to hurt so badly, and it made him wonder if he was going to die. Will Ripley keep repeating this forever? Again, Ripley zaps back to 24 hours ago, during his sword practice. His colleague from before asks why he's spacing out. Meanwhile, Ripley carefully holds the handle of his wooden sword. Suddenly, he starts swinging it around. Advanced swordsmanship, perception, and physical ability are all here. He cries out an apology to the collector for losing his focus and messing things up. Meanwhile, the collector is at the back of the carriage making small talk with the other passenger about how peaceful the area is. Their conversation from before repeated itself, and just like before, he decides to check on the skills he has in stock. But to his shock, some of the skills are lacking in their respective levels. That's strange. The stocked skills are off. Some of the combat skills have their levels lowered a bit, including the hard-to-find advanced swordsmanship. The other passenger noticed the troubled look on our protagonist's face, asking him what was wrong. Our protagonist plays it cool, saying he was just thinking about business. In his mind, he's racking his brain, wondering how this happened. Suddenly, he hears a voice from outside asking the carriage to stop. Ripley shouts from the front, asking the collector if he's on board. He goes on about how he lost his focus and ended up screwing things up. Our protagonist is confused because he just heard someone call out to him. The collector uses his appraisal and sees some of the missing skills on this strange young man. The latter introduces himself as Ripley, promising the collector that he'll do better this time. The latter quickly disembarks from the carriage, approaching Ripley about his skills. So Ripley had to take it from the top and explain everything again. They make their way to the cave entrance, which is still intact, just as the collector asks for clarifications about the whole scenario. So this is Ripley's fifth return caused by the time loop, right? The latter affirms. But our protagonist finds the story hard to believe. Still, the young man has all of the missing levels from the collector's stocked skills. So Ripley's story checks out. Well, if he wants to escape a past loop by working with Ripley, then he figured it's best to cooperate with him again this time. Like clockwork, the ground starts to shake, as the collector wonders if this is the earthquake Ripley was talking about. Unlike him, Ripley has a determined look in his eyes and a firm footing, his hand ready to draw his sword. A moment later, a swarm of monsters appeared, with the collector using his stock fire magic to fight off the small fries. Seeing how that's the best course of action in this scenario, Ripley runs ahead now that he has found the cave where the monsters came out of. He remembers the first time he found the cave back then, noting how the seal must have broken during the earthquake. He was scared and worried given how he wasn't able to get any of the villagers to believe him last time. But if that's what's going to happen, he took it upon himself to take down the monsters before they could even attack the village. Back to the present, Ripley stands before them undeterred. He admits that back then he died by recklessly charging into the cave. But now, he cuts down the monsters with ease using the advanced swordsmanship he bought from the collector. Taking them down is much easier now compared to before, but he makes a mental note of the high-level monsters in the area. He also made it a point not to be reliant on the skills he bought from the collector anymore, just as a loud thud hits the ground. The monster that killed Ripley from last time appeared, but this time the young man is determined not to return by death again. The collector quickly appraises the giant monster before them. That's a pretty high-level monster from the cave. Is this the one that caused Ripley's death? Our protagonist readies a couple of stocked skills like Earth Armor and Instant Force so he can just jump in and help Ripley anytime. But it looks like that won't be necessary, as the latter cuts down the monster's limbs easily, vowing to defeat the giant as he unleashes a flurry of attacks. Ripley proclaims that he will change his and the villagers' fate before dealing the final blow. With that, the giant monster's body crumbles to the ground, while the collector watches the young man's back. Ripley talks about his only skill, proud to say that he finally managed to change his fate. Back at Ripley's village, everything is normal, with people milling about. He and the collector stand together, watching the people go about their business. This just means the world has begun to move normally again, right? The collector still can't believe it, given how he has no recollection of it. To that, Ripley smiled and told him how the collector also helped him fight last time. If anything, he's just glad that he and everyone else in the village are saved. But as soon as he said that, Ripley fell to his knees and then began to hold himself. He may have saved himself and everyone, but in doing so he died over and over 4 times. He gets up and confirms if the collector buys skills, then proceeds to ask the latter to buy his only skill, Return by Death, from him. Ripley knows that it's a troublesome skill, but with the collector's management skill, he knows the latter can store a skill outside his skill slots, right? At this point, the young man doesn't even care about the money anymore, while the collector wordlessly takes his hand. The collector tells him that he will buy Ripley's only skill, Return by Death, for free. With that, the deal is sealed. But instead of the usual brightening of their hands, there was just a spark. Our protagonist lowers his head since it was no use after all. He explains to Ripley that he actually tried to do this before, but with his level 1 trading, he can't exactly buy Ripley's only skill. This made Ripley distraught. Suddenly, he grabs the collector by the collar, saying that as long as he has Return by Death, he will have to live his whole life unable to die. He starts to crash out, enumerating the instances of his future suffering. Does this mean that if he dies from an illness, he'll have to repeat that agonizing last day for all eternity? Or is Ripley supposed to kill himself every day to rewind time and keep himself alive like that? His loop would just continue on, dragging the whole world with him. Both men were suddenly quiet, and it was Ripley who broke away, apologizing because none of this is the collector's fault. But the latter begs to differ and gets up. He apologizes to Ripley, saying this is because his trading skill is too weak. Only skill is stuck at level 1, and so far there's no tale of one ever leveling up. Our protagonist feels sorry for Ripley because even he can't begin to understand the young man's fear and anxiety over his only skill. When Ripley faces death again, the agony of looping through death awaits him. Besides, if times across the entire world keep repeating themselves, someone is bound to notice it soon enough. If someone wanted to exploit Return by Death and capture Ripley, the poor young man would end up being killed again and again whenever it suited his captor. All this thinking got the collector wondering aloud why he even became a collector in the first place. If anything, it's pathetic. Our protagonist says the reason he works as a collector is to hone his skills and meet a certain someone. If only skills have a concept of levels, then it also means they can definitely reach level 2. Our protagonist apologized to Ripley, saying he can't help right now, but he promises to raise his trading skill to level 2 and purchase the young man's Return by Death. Honestly, the collector has no idea how long it will take, but if he gives up while there's still hope, then his friend who kept fighting until the bitter end would laugh at him. But level 2, Ripley says there's still a lot he doesn't know about his Return by Death, but he can't exactly complain. The two part ways, with Ripley waving to the other man as he asks if the collector would lend his strengths again if the former ever feels like his own skills are getting him down. As usual, the collector tells Ripley to call him without hesitation. The collector faces forward, still reeling from such a skill called Return by Death. As usual, only skills never fail to surprise him, but thanks to that, time has started moving normally again. The days of doing his work as the collector and searching for his sister continue on. After all, if time doesn't move forward, he says there's not even a hope of meeting. The collector is back in the city again. He even admits to himself how pleased he is to be back at the familiar place, as he finds himself more relaxed when he's in town. A local greets him, saying he hasn't seen our protagonist in a while and asks if he's not working today. Our protagonist answers that he's not because today he's summoned by one of his regular clients, producing a letter as he says so. On the way, the collector notices an arena poster and before long finally reaches his destination. He opens the door right in time to see two men wrestling, with the fallen man crying out how no one can beat Leondold. This man named Leondold turns and his face lights up as soon as he sees the collector. The latter meets his client, commenting on the wrestling ring at Leondold's residence. Well, he expected nothing less from the arena champion Leondold. The champion says it's because he wants to keep honing his skills, which is why he's happy with the monster attraction skill he bought from the collector. It was really helpful. He's the person the collector regularly sold monster attraction to. But more importantly, our protagonist is more curious about the person standing right next to the champion. Leondold pushes the other guy forward and says the latter's name is Congus. Actually, the real reason why Leondold called the collector is to help Congus. To our protagonist's shock, Congus suddenly grabs his hands and begs him to let him buy the cooking skill for his wife. He'll even pay whatever it takes. Meanwhile, the collector asks Leondold what the meaning of all this is. Didn't they have an agreement to keep his skill sales discreet? You see, selling skills often causes issues, and if people know about it, some start demanding a certain skill, which is why the collector prefers to keep this fact low-key. The champion breaks out into a smile. Come on now, it's fine if he shares it with his best friend, right? It's not like the collector can do anything about it now, so fine. He decides to hear what Kongis has to say. The three of them are seated in the champion's receiving area, while the champion himself serves them drinks. Kongis takes one of the mugs, looking at it longingly, saying how it's been a while since he has seen a proper drink. Hearing him say that made the collector puzzled, prompting him to ask Kongis what he meant by that. With a sigh, the man begins by saying he just got married recently and has a lovely wife. Kongis makes money as a fighter and adventurer, so his wife is doing her best as a housewife, you know? With that, he starts shedding tears as he says he wants to give her the cooking skill since she's not that good at that chore. If cooking's the main concern, the collector points out that she can manage that without a skill. Couldn't she just learn it from someone or through practice? In all honesty, it would be way cheaper than buying a skill from the collector. Kongis slams his fist on the table, stressed because his wife is way beyond help. Not only does she not measure ingredients, but she also mistook a ladle for a tablespoon. And that's not all. She also adds sugar to salty things, thinking that would fix it. And worst of all, his wife insists on doing it all homemade. Like, yeah, he's super happy she put so much love into it, but poor Kongis has had enough. It's awful. It tastes really bad. There was a pregnant pause before the collector asked him the obvious. Had he told her about all this? Is he joking? Kongis can never say all of that to his lovely wife. Leondold and the collector can only frown, with the latter thinking that nothing will change at this rate. Finally, Leondold adds his 2 cents, saying he understands the collector's sentiments, but even he's a little shocked that his brave best friend can actually be defeated by a single meal. Kongis knew that merely talking about the matter wouldn't make it believable, which is why he brought the actual food in question today. The man produces a simple lunchbox and presents it to the collector and Leondold. The champion chimes in that he hasn't seen what's inside, but admittedly, he's also scared. The collector remained quiet, but to see the champion scared over something like this, then his meal must be really quite something. He uses one of his stocked skills, intuition, and eyes the boxed meal. Surprisingly enough, the skill is screaming at him to run away. Leondold grabs the lunchbox cover and opens it. As soon as he did, a foul stench emanated from the meal, with Kongis scolding him from the back. He should have aired the room before opening it. Meanwhile, the collector activates multiple stocked skills to protect himself, namely poison resistance, barrier, and endurance. As for Leondold, the poor man experienced the full brunt of the stench, dizzy and teary-eyed as he asked just what the hell this was. The lunchbox is oozing with tentacles, different mushrooms, frog feet, and a hand from God knows where it came from, all wrapped up in a murky, dark liquid. The three of them just stared in silence at this thing before them. No, but really, what is this? The collector asks. While Kongis says his wife calls it overflowing bliss of paradise, the champion quips that it's better called overflowing horror of hell in his opinion. The collector follows up with another question, asking Kongis if his wife actually ate this stuff. The latter says she does, and she even eats it as if it's nothing. Leondold couldn't believe it. He had to be joking, right? The champion stares at the meal warily before grabbing a fork. Well, maybe it just looks and smells awful, but who knows, maybe it doesn't taste bad, right? To that, our protagonist reminded him that he just called the meal disgusting not a minute ago. But whatever, man. Leondold thinks that at least he won't die from eating it, right? With that, he takes a bite of the meal from hell, then starts to tremble. The collector calls out to him, and the champion is cowed on his feet. It was that bad. Before he could collapse, Kongis grabbed him by the shoulder. The latter already knew this would happen because, in his case, he's already gotten used to it over time. The collector uses his appraisal skill and sees that Kongis has a level 13 poison resistance. It's a pretty high level, which is not really surprising considering Kongis eats crap like this every day. They taped the lunchbox from hell and finally got talking. The collector shares that even for an amateur cook like him, this just goes beyond being bad at cooking. It's on an entirely different level. With that said, he thinks that maybe it's some kind of negative skill. He asks Kongis if he has ever seen his wife's skill certificate. Kongis tried asking for that, but his wife keeps refusing him. The collector knows that his wife should have gotten a skill certificate at the age of 10, and it's pretty strange how she refused to share it with her husband. Well, he can always use his appraisal skill on her as their last option. The collector notices that Leondold has come to, still looking groggy, but he has an idea. They'll just throw a party here, at his place. He tells Kongis to bring his wife along so that the collector can take a look at her skills. The latter adds that if it's not a skill issue, then they can just turn it into a regular cooking class. Kongis couldn't thank his best friend enough for this. Since they mentioned cooking, the collector adds that he knows someone who is very knowledgeable in that area. Should he invite her too? It's an instant yes from the champion, saying that it would be a big help. The next day, a girl hurries over to the collector. It's Violet. She apologizes for having him wait for her, but our protagonist says she shouldn't. After all, he's the one who invited her on such short notice. Meanwhile, Violet's a little nervous because this is her first home party, although she knows it might turn into a cooking class. The collector assures her that she'll be fine. After all, when he got a taste of the food at Sumire-san, the older lady at the diner, he knew he could ask for Violet's help. As for the latter, she's just happy that the collector is relying on her, though she's hoping she could actually help when the time comes. The two of them made their way to Leondold's place, and what welcomed them was his place, full of people eating and having a great time. As soon as they arrived, the champion turned his attention to the two, saying Kongus should be arriving soon. As if on cue, they hear Kongus's voice apologizing for being late, saying it took him a while to find the right outfit for the event. Right beside him is a pretty, long-haired lady, scolding him a bit and saying he should be more polite. The collector, Violet, and the champion were stunned because Kongus wasn't joking. His wife really is lovely. She greets and thanks them for always looking after her husband before introducing herself as Celeferi. So she's the one who cooked that horrifying meal, and the champion can't help but comment how his best friend really lucked out on Celeferi. Isn't she too good for Kongus? The latter fires back that he and his wife married for love. She agrees and even shares how she's the one who fell for him and pursued him. Just then, Kongus turns to the collector and gives him a knowing nod. This is it. The collector uses his appraisal skill to see what's behind her disastrous cooking. As their group parted ways, the collector kept his eye on Celeferi. So she has a level 18 creativity skill and a level 25 tastelessness skill. Now the collector gets it. Celeferi's creativity level must have taken things in a bad direction. That, paired with her high level of tastelessness, resulted in that horrible dish. Meanwhile, the girl in question happily fetches a slice of bread on her plate while the collector continues appraising her. Finally, he sees her third skill, but he thinks this one needs to be discussed in private. After everyone has eaten, with Celeferi having a little drink by herself, the collector approaches her. She sees him and was about to converse with him, saying Kongus has told her about him, when the collector leaned closer to whisper in her ear. He tells her he needs to talk to her about her skills, asking to meet him outside when she's free. She drops her drink from her hand with the sound of glass catching everyone's attention. Celeferi is visibly shaken, with Violet asking if they're okay. The collector calmly tells them that he'll clean up the mess, but from the side, Kongus looks at him with worry. Outside, the collector waits patiently, and soon enough, Celeferi joins him, hunched over and scared. First, he apologizes for calling her out like this and explains that because of his work, he possesses appraisal, so he knows about her skills. Celeferi quickly got on her knees and begged him not to tell Kongus. Does she really want to hide that? The collector already knows she has a high-level cosmetic skill. In fact, it's even higher than her tastelessness skill. At that level, she could completely transform her face. He calmly asks her if she's hiding a burn mark, which made her pale. How does he know that? Again, the collector explains that due to his profession, he also has a skill called clairvoyance. A tense moment of silence passed between them, before Celeferi finally stood up. Since the collector knows everything already, there's no point in hiding anymore, right? This time, she starts to tell her story. When she was younger, Celeferi had an accident that left terrible burn marks on her face, and these ones are the type that last forever. It became her insecurity and the very reason why she hated her own face. Because of this, she never even considered falling in love until one day. While she was moping by the river and looking at her face, her hat got swept away by the wind. It was picked up by a young man who not only handed it back to her but also called her a cool lady. It was Kongus. Cool? Her? How? Kongus points to the burn marks on her face, saying, "Those are pretty cool. They're like life's badge, at least in his opinion." Kongus may no longer remember that time, but for Celeferi it was everything. No one has ever said anything like that to her before, and his innocent bluntness captivated her. Celeferi tells the collector that Kongus saved her. For a while, she thought he would still be his friend as she was, but ultimately, she ended up falling for him. She decided that no matter what, she wanted to be with him. So now Celeferi begs the collector not to tell her husband about her cosmetic skill. Without it, even if he tells her she looks cool, Kongus will never think she's cute. The only thing the collector asks is if she's going to keep wearing that mask forever. Sadly, it reminded him of his own sister, who had been wearing a mask the whole time they were together. The gap between truth and lie will only grow wider with time, and if Kongus learns about the truth later on, his shock may even be greater. The collector feels bad laying the truth on her, especially since he's an outsider, but Celeferi understands where he's coming from. If anything, now that they talked about what she was hiding, she feels a little relieved. Even though she never thought about it, it looks like the guilt had been weighing on her this whole time. The collector was just about to warn her when the door opened, and Kongus tells them he heard everything. Poor Celeferi's biggest fear has come true. She stands paralyzed, fearful of an approaching Kongus. But before he can reach her, she makes a run for it, only for Congus to tell her that the one thing he hates the most is to see her suffer. She shouldn't underestimate him. He pulls her in for a hug as he tells her that he loves her dedication. Congus explicitly tells her that he will love her mark, cooking, and everything. This made Celeferi start to cry, while Leondold and Violet, along with the Collector, bear witness to their love. The Collector thinks that maybe to accept someone as they are is what love really is. As for the skill issue, he suggests they talk about it at another time and give the husband and wife some space. Fast forward to the next day, the Collector is back at Sumire-san's diner with Violet serving him cake. So what happened with the cooking? He takes a bite of the strawberry first, saying it's just as Violet imagined. As for Celeferi's disastrous cooking, it's all because of her high-level cosmetic skill. Congus suggested to her that she should just remove that skill. She doesn't need to wear makeup in front of him. She counters that she wants to look beautiful for him. But then again, she also wants Congus to taste delicious food. Ever since their talk, he tells the Collector and Leondold how she has become clingier, making her even cuter in his eyes. Well, since the skill is strong but disadvantageous, the Collector said he'll be charging Congus for it instead of reclaiming it. The latter's more than happy to pay for anything for his lovely wife as he hands him the payment. The Collector tells Violet that he's going to buy back the skill after eating. Honestly speaking, he's preparing himself to listen to Congus's lovey-dovey rambles about his wife, but never mind. Violet smiles. Isn't it nice to be loved like that? The Collector feels doubtful, but she says it is. He even got scolded for not understanding a girl's heart. After finishing his meal, he made his way back to the champion's place to reclaim the skill. Honestly speaking, he thinks it's okay to leave Celeferi's cosmetic skill at level 1 though. At that level, she should be able to get past it within a year if she tries. After all, he thinks that both cooking and life are better with a little spice. It keeps things interesting sometimes. That is the end of the recap at Chapter 8. Please read the pinned comment about the next part.